I would like to welcome first on the panel, ladies first, Georgiana Ion. Georgiana is a principal with Nexia member Odi Ravi from Milan, Italy, and several other offices in Italy. But Georgiana is right now in the beautiful city of Milan, joining us. And also, I would like to welcome back to the panel Jeff Manning from CohnReznick Capital and my colleague Paulo Carvalho from PPNC. Samantha, could you please go to the next slide? In preparing this webinar, we looked at both the distressed and the, let's call it the hopefully non-distressed M&A activities during COVID, and also for the next couple of months, or maybe the next 12 months. So here are some of those questions which we will be discussing during the next 20-25 minutes. But please feel free in the audience if you have any questions regarding what the view of our experts is regarding distressed M&A right now during COVID, lessons learned over the from the last couple of months, the last 12-15 months, or the differences between the regular M&A transactions and the distressed M&A process. So please feel free to join your question, to send your questions during the chat. I would like to start with Georgiana with the first question that we have here. What's your experience over the last 12, 13 months in Italy, in Europe, regarding the nature of transactions? Have there been, let's say, sort of plain vanilla, quiet M&A transactions, or has everything been at least a stressed process, even if it's maybe not a distressed company?
First of all, thank you, Ryan. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be part of this panel, even if I'm not an expert in the TRI. So I'm coming from the M&A business group. So I will give my perspective from the M&A, from the regular M&A, let's say, side, and not the distressed. I have the experts with me, so it will be more like confronting the two, let's say, words. And speaking, from my point of view, when the plain vanilla, in my opinion, doesn't exist anymore. So the transactions, like the standard M&A, somehow all transactions, if we speak about standard or distress, have suffered during this pandemic, and and also the effects will be seen for sure in the post-pandemic part. Say plain vanilla transaction is like saying going back to normal, which can't be done anymore because there is no normal anymore. Now we are dealing with the new normal. The normal, the world, the world one is gone. So. Also the M&A will not be the same as it was before the pandemic. Now, during the times of COVID, somehow the standard M&A became a little bit distressed. I think all the transactions we can say that became distressed when we look at the transactions that have been done, because unfortunately in my case, actually last year I was based in Bucharest during the pandemic. Now I'm in Milan, but speaking from, let's say, at the European level, and I think also worldwide, the M&A stopped at the beginning of the pandemic, so that the first month, we couldn't see any move on this M&A side. So during the COVID, the transactions that were, let's say, already started, so they were ongoing, they moved on and closed with some, let's say, difficulties, but indeed they closed, and the new transaction were all postponed to the let's say latest month of 2020, and now with the starting of the new year, so 2021, we saw like the boom. So all the transactions that were postponed last year, so started. Yeah, but I think this is like a general rule. Is not only in Italy, in Europe, and I would like to hear also, your opinion. So my colleagues.
Yes. Let me pass on the question to Jeff. I know, Jeff, you're an expert in distressed M&A, but within CohnReznick Capital, you also have several colleagues that do regular M&A transactions in several industries. What's your view? Are, let's say, the distressed and the regular M&A getting a little bit closer to each other?
Well, let me agree with Georgiana that at the beginning of the lockdown, there was a 3 to 4 month period when nothing was getting closed. Everything was sort of sealed shut as people were trying to figure out what's going on.
Yep.
One of the things that I found interesting during the lockdown is that I got 3 or 4 emails a week from a private equity fund, and the private equity people in the United States are awash with liquidity, too much money chasing too few deals. And I'd get a couple of emails from somebody who would say, well, look, we've expanded our investment focus to include special situations. And then they would go through what the criteria was that they were looking to target their investment. And inevitably they'd say, oh yeah, we'd like $5 million or more in EBITDA. So they really weren't special situations people. They were just conventional M&A private equity funds trying to see deal flow. And certainly starting in the third quarter of 2020 and through the year, the velocity of transactions that were being done increased substantially. And in the United States, we did not see the volume of special situations or distressed transactions that we were expecting to see as we were watching the lockdown.
Thank you, Jeff. That's interesting. I think in Europe, when I look back to especially the second half of 2020 and the first 2-3 months in this year, I think everybody expected much more distressed M&A activity or just sale of assets out of insolvent companies that didn't happen. And the big question mark is still if this will happen in the second half of this year or in 2020. So that's still unclear. But Paulo, I'm interested in your view regarding the mix between regular M&A process and the distressed one. Maybe not only in Brazil, but maybe Latin America as a continent, a broader view.
So, Heiner, I believe that the world has changed and transactions have changed too. And here in America Latina, there is no too much money for M&A operations or transactions. I believe that we have used our creativity for providing solutions for our clients. Turbulence period has the period with opportunities. So I believe that here in South America, we have a lot of opportunities, but we have to provide new solutions or different solutions to our clients.
Thank you, Paulo. Jeff, I want to go back to the example you mentioned from the private equity fund sending you emails saying, well, we were a private equity fund until a month ago. Now we're a distressed asset fund. And we like to do this as well. When I look at the different types of investors, distressed investors, and in your case study shows this really in a great way of what was paid for the asset and what the asset was worth like a year or 15 months later in the next investment round, where I don't want to say people gamble, but they had a different view than the regular private equity fund who wants to see a reliable cash flow, EBITDA to do the valuations. When you're looking at the market situation right now and the different types of investors, the strategic investors, the regular private equity fund, and the more experienced distressed investors, do you think the distressed investors have an advantage and let's say a slight edge compared to the typical private equity fund who says, well, I don't look at deals below, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 million EBITDA?
Yeah, well, look, and I've seen academic research on this point. The people who do special situations investing can live with a lot more uncertainty than the conventional private equity fund who's looking to do their due diligence. They want to answer 120% of the questions they have, and a lot of times the information available might be 80%. So the distressed investor uses that differential to a discount. A lot of times the people that are private equity conventional investors can't even put a bid in because they can't get comfortable with the answers they want. And it is pretty common for assets to trade out of Chapter 11, either through a 363 sale or through a plan of reorganization, and then get a much higher value in a year or two. And another war story I can share was Cannondale, the bike company, international bike company. And if any of you are bike enthusiasts and you want to pay $3,000 for a mountain bike, that was Cannondale's marketplace. And I sold Cannondale out of bankruptcy for $40 million. And less than a year later, the private equity, special situation private equity fund sold Cannondale to a strategic for $250 million. And the strategics and the high grade private equity funds, they're just not comfortable in that marketplace because they don't know it. Even though I've always argued that there's compelling valuation if you go to work there.
Thank you, Jeff. Georgiana, what's your view and experience in Europe coming from the, let's say, regular M&A side? Do you think the strategic investors and the private equity funds have a much tougher time ahead right now, as Jeff said? Well, the others feel more comfortable with 70-80% of their questions answered. And then going back to how a regular M&A transaction usually works, you have a data room, you have different models, you have different projections. The world looks fine 5 years out, and right now I cannot imagine anyone doing a 5-year projection coming from either a strategic investor or a private equity fund that is comparable to what they did 18 months ago. So what's your view on that?
So if I'm referring to, you know, the advantage of the distressed investors, now that you mentioned, of course they have an advantage during the COVID compared to the classical strategic investors, especially from let's say from the process management point of view. So for sure, the distressed investors are more familiar with the tough situation, uncertain situation, and of course time, and they are more time sensitivity. However, I think for let's say a regular investor, strategic investor, having on their side a strong financial advisor also could would be helpful in this tough situation. Normally, if you are doing by yourself, even in normal situation, market situation, sometimes it's not it's not easy. But in this stressful situation, having a strong, as I said, a strong advisor by your side could be somehow helpful, and also handling this situation. For example, putting together your expertise, as a TRI expert with let's say on the side of a strategic regular investor. Putting together these two forces could be helpful in these times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking from actually this is my humble opinion, because I'm not an expert in distressed M&A, and I'm thinking that in this case your expertise for sure could make the difference in handling these tough situations.
Okay, thank you, Georgiana. Paulo, we both know that the environment in Latin America is much more, let's call it, flexible and unforeseeable than maybe in the Northern Hemisphere. So getting 80% of answers in a due diligence process, we would probably see as something more normal or standard compared to maybe the Northern Hemisphere, where some investors, especially the financial investors, see transactions, really like it has to be bulletproof, 120%, and we both know that in Latin America it's a little bit different. Do you see any changes in, let's say, the Latin American M&A world? Will the Latin American companies have to be satisfied with even less than 80% certainty? Is the time frame going to be shorter or longer? What's your view on M&A right now?
I believe behind it that the investors are waiting for better time here in South America, because we are in turbulence in Chile, in Peru, Colombia. We are facing many political problems in our region, and it are avoid a new money in our region. In the next year, we will have elections here in Brazil, and it could be complicate more than scenario that we are facing now. Brazil represents the half business in South America, the half part. We have the 50% our population and the economy, etc. I believe that the investors and companies owner like our client, they are waiting for better time here in South America. I don't believe that in this year we will have a lot of business here.
Okay, thank you for that perspective, which I, with my experience in Brazil and Latin America, unfortunately share. So in addition to the entire COVID pandemic, which is taking much longer in Latin America than in Europe or the US to really get, I don't want to say get back to normal, but get back to a more stable environment where you can at least make 12 months plans. The situation in Latin America is both COVID-wise and then politically probably unstable as it hasn't been for 20 years.
Yeah.
So just looking at the time right now, I think we have a little bit time, 2-3 minutes for one last question, which maybe whoever wants to pick it up, Jeff, Georgiana, or Paulo. After this standstill of the first 3-4 months with M&A transactions and nothing closing, nothing going forward, we saw in certain cases changes to the M&A process itself. I mean, we and our colleagues have seen M&A transactions being closed and negotiated completely online and virtually. We have seen different forms of due diligence completely, let's say, on an electronic basis. We have seen the use of drones flying over factories. I mean, it's in the agricultural business in Brazil. It's you take satellite pictures. But we have also seen cases where drones flew over factories and just made an inspection from the air, sending pictures, which was sufficient. How do you see that over the next, let's say, couple of years for the entire M&A process? Is this process changing towards less paper, less due diligence on site, less management presentations, and becoming almost completely electronic and offsite?
Yeah, if I can make just 3 quick comments. I spoke with a private equity group last month who said they did the first deal they had ever closed without meeting the management team in person. We also had to sell 56 long-term care facility locations in California and Arizona, and we had to use the Google Maps satellite pictures to outline each one of those locations so that people could do the due diligence. My third and last point is what I'm hearing is that people really want to go back to the old ways. In the United States, the courts are going back to in-person hearings. People are at a disadvantage when you're not able to go out and cut a deal. So I think we're going to see maybe not a full return to the old-fashioned way of doing things. And I wouldn't want to own a business hotel these days for the next decade, but you're going to see people picking up travel, I think. Georgiana?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I'm speaking now, from the Italian point of view, the culture, and I think Paolo also can confirm this because we are Latin people. So, and the physicality, let's say, so the one-to-one meeting, for sure it will be the key in. So we will not substitute the whole process, the M&A process. Yeah, the main issue with remote M&A negotiation is that deal making has always been a relationship business. So if it's like marriage, I like this, deal making is like online dating, they say, where algorithm and data can be part, of determining the compatibility, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the two parties will prove to be, the perfect match and decide to get married. And this is what actually currently we are involved. So we have an Italian client that is looking forward, is interested in acquiring a North American company. And you know what he said during the last week, we have the management presentation meeting. He said, I have never signed a deal without meeting in person the management. So also in this case, he can't travel to the US, unfortunately, these days. So either he said, I will for sure, you know, it will be more than you know, pleasure to invite them, you know, the Canadian people, the North American people, to Italy, and I will, you know, guest them. But I need to, you know, to meet these people in person. I can't sign a contract without, even if we, you know, they met each other, you know, the teams, but no, this will definitely will not you know, substitute the yeah.
Okay.
Last point, chemistry is
Thank you,
key.
Georgiana.
And at some point in the process, you've got to have that dinner, bottle of wine, talk about what the big picture is.
Special
And that's gonna come back.
details, you know what I mean? It's
And thank you
Paulo,
all for inviting me.
Paulo, last statement from you.
No, I agree with Georgiana. We are a Latin people. We need the contact, but now it is impossible. And I believe that in the future, the contact will be less than in the past. But we will still contact people to sign, to closing business, and etc. But our team will working at home, will work totally out of the client office.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me thank Georgiana, Jeff, and Paulo for the interesting discussion, and turn over to Kevin for the closing remarks. Thank you.
thank you for inviting us.
Great discussions, lots going on in our marketplaces, which is good to see. So, you know, certainly it's always good to see everybody's faces, and appreciate you taking the time to participate and join our webinar today. Look for future ones as we have hot topics coming up over the next several months. And this has been recorded, so if you have colleagues who want to watch it later on, you know, please let them know. So thank you very much. Enjoyed hearing everything, and take care. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.